Good afternoon, Suidlanders, or good morning. It doesn't really matter, does it? Trust that you're well. Under the circumstances, I know that many people are battling. It's not an easy time for most of us, financially and otherwise. But as I say, under the circumstances, may you be doing well. I'd like to chat with you briefly, not for very long, about something that's on my heart, and that's to observe the tremendous progress being made by the HQ guys, the national departments heads, the provincial leaders, the executive council, if that's the correct translation. I mean, it's the standard translation. Mr. Miller's executive council guys, and many ordinary Suidlanders members. It is really very encouraging. This is only a personal message. Does anybody care whether I'm encouraged? Probably not, but for whatever it's worth to you, it's marvelous to see. It's marvelous to see so much activity, so much progress, so much formality and structure and systems and doing things properly. And that's the nature of what's being done at the moment. A lot of people appear to be doing things properly. Not slapdash, not slipshod, not shoddy, not shabby. It's just great. I chatted this morning with somebody with whom I get on very well. We don't speak very often, but we get on well. And we see a lot the same way, and that person is very successful in his field of endeavor, his or her field of endeavor, successful professional, to the extent that they changed their working circumstances recently, have been the head for one of South Africa's biggest companies, really biggest, a famous South African company with global tentacles, the head of one of that company's divisions for the whole world. Divisions or departments. Somebody who knows what they're doing. And it was just so lacquer to hear from them after a long time this morning, early this morning, before 8. And they were talking about stuff that they're endeavoring to do in their local group. And it came on top of some other things that I've observed over days and weeks and months. Stuff that, I don't deal with everybody. So if I leave out a name, it's because I don't deal with you, It's not that I... But guys like Mike and Oom Jan and Jan Fourie, just doing things properly, getting them done, making progress. It's wonderful. And this morning, at, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something, a few hours ago, there was a whole lot of activity on Suidlanders leadership groups to do with personnel and their names. So, as I understand it, the message that went out was, we want to double check that the right people are on these leadership groups. So confirm yourself. Excuse me. I just got ice cream. I don't know where it came from. I mean, there's no ice cream in my mouth, but one of those little stabbing things in my one tooth. So people were saying, okay, I'm Karina from Uppington, I'm responsible for this. And I saw Karina's name, and she and her mom and I get on quite well. And another person, I'd forgotten about that person, and that person is still, it was just terrific to see this flood of response from responsible people. There was the big radio oefening, onttrekkingsoefening recently. Good things are happening, and this is just a waffle about that. It was on my heart, so I thought, I'll do it, because I don't see enough people on a frequent basis to share these sentiments. And they should be shared. They might not be worth much, but it cost me 10 minutes of my time. Who cares? To tell the truth. You're doing well. And it's just excellent. Such an improvement on perhaps, the past, when the discipline and the leadership and the what is the word? Not application. Yes, it's application, but the commitment. When you're serious about something, not in how broadly you shove out your chest, stick out your chest, how deep you make your voice, how many, but when you apply yourself and do that kind of commitment, the real commitment, not the bull dust, empty words commitment. And it's occurring at a vital time in the history of the world and in the history of South Africa. Without being too dramatic, without appearing to suggest that, I always use this reference, and I hope that people like it. I like the Asterix and Obelix comics. I haven't read them for years, but I used to have a not so bad collection. And in their religion, the Druidic kind of, the Celtic religion of ancient, what you would call France now, Gaul, they believed that one day, if things didn't go well, if they didn't say their prayers, if they didn't make offerings to the gods, whatever, the sky would fall on their heads. So I always use that as a sort of a childlike way of talking about doom and gloom without being too heavy. I'm not suggesting that the sky is going to fall on our heads the day after tomorrow. I am saying, though, that if we're not living in dim times, then I don't know. In South Africa, in the world, if you listen to Mr. Miller's sermons in the mornings and evenings on Radio Grootrivier, then you know that the most sensible, scholarly, understanding, let's say generally, of the events around us in South Africa and the world are terrifying. I often say on my foreign group to our foreign supporters, Bundestag, the European Parliament, some very special people in the USA, and lots of ordinary people, that I wish that they could hear Mr. Miller's sermons. Because I don't see, in the vast amount of research that I do every day, anybody giving such apposite, which is like relevant. But apposite is kind of like accurately relevant, right on the moment. Acutely relevant. Acuitously relevant. Assessments of what's happening in the world in English. Not in the English language, not as far as I know, and I do a lot of research. I'm deliberating whether to tell a funny story. the other day, you hear these stories of people who stare at computer screens for too long, playing games in Japan. And then they keel over after 3 days of not sleeping. They found stone dead. Well, it's happened to me just recently for the first time ever in the past few weeks, 3 or 4, 5, 6 times, something like that, that I felt nauseous while doing my work. Excuse me, I'll pause and get rid of this. And I thought, what the hang is wrong with me? And then I realized that when it was too much, and I put my phone down or turned my head away from the big screen or from this screen over here or this screen in front of me, as the case may be, it went away. And then after 5 minutes, I'd come back. This nausea had passed, this strange nausea. And after 5 minutes, it would come back. And it took me, a while to figure out the obvious, that it was just too much time spent staring at these screens. Which is not to say that I'm always conscientious and diligent. Don't get me wrong. I watch junk when I feel like it. Absolute rubbish. And lots of chess. But, yeah. There's nobody in English saying the things that Yapi, whether you like Yapi or not, whether you're an Israelite or not, whether you whatever, that doesn't matter. The fact remains that the scholarly ontleding, for example, of the Hydra, that sermon that he gave, I suppose there's one guy in the world that, in English that is kind of with Mr. Miller and Yapi on these things. And he's very good. And no doubt, people pick up from one another. But still, those sermons must tell us. They must convince us. If we can't be convinced by that, what can we be convinced by? I come from a very religious family. So we used to attend church. It was a very big thing. There was no possibility of missing church. It didn't happen. It couldn't happen. So I was exposed to many sermons. I've heard a sermon or two in my time. Thank you very much. I'm therefore in a position to evaluate the quality of a sermon. Not because I'm a especially religious holy guy, but I know what I'm talking about. I've been sermonized more than most. And there's very, very, very little of that value in the English language. And where it is good, it ends up going off the deep end. It just ends up rubbish. We live in strange times, in difficult times, in frightening times. Ukraine, World War III, emerging famines, food shortages. Financial problems, economic problems as something separate to financial problems. Eskom here in South Africa. And it is very gratifying to see Suidlanders sector, provincial, national, and executive leadership achieving what they're achieving. What is the substance? What are the tools that they're working with? What are the bricks and the mortar? The members. So, that's it. That's my story for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you found this message encouraging. Please like, share, and subscribe. And God bless all of you for the times that lie ahead of us.